YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing tip video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Made it home from Pickwick. I had to shoot a show in Wilson yesterday. Actually, the show went really well. Can't wait for y'all to watch it. It was a lot of fun. Caught them real fast, caught them in a hurry, and I think you're going to learn something from it. It's going to be on Let's Fish TV, but getting ready this week for the James River, and I'm sitting there thinking, I've had a couple questions about this here recently, is the difference between rattling and silent crankbaits and when to utilize both of them. And I think that's a very interesting topic, and I have a lot to say about it, so make sure y'all stay tuned. If you haven't yet, though, drop down and hit that subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner and comment below which is your favorite for shallow water, rattling or silent crankbaits. I'd love to know, because there is a definite difference, and I truly believe there's certain situations where one is better than the other. So make sure y'all drop that comment below. And I've got a mission for you. Let's see if we can hit 500 likes on this video. I want to hit that in 2 days. So 500 likes. I know you're going to watch this video because it's cool. It's super cool. So drop it below and let me know what you think. And I hope you enjoy this tip video. Alright guys, today's daily tip is going to revolve around silent or rattling crankbaits. There is a definite difference between the two. Obviously, one has a sound and one doesn't. But there is certain situations where one or the other have a more vital role and definitely will get you more bites on a given day. You know, I can think of so many different scenarios where they worked for me and where they were more effective. I'm going to break down a few of them for you. First, I'm going to talk about shallow water. Shallow water, you know, you can get a KVD 1.5, a 1.0, 2.5, 4.0, 8.0. They're all silent. Every one of them are silent. Well, Bass Pro actually has an exclusive rattling version of the 1.5 and 2.5. And I don't know if they have the 1.0, but I know they have the 1.5, 2.5. And they have exclusive rattling versions of there. And we also just came out with the 1.5 hard knock, which has the same sound as like our 2-tap. Or our hard knock sexy dog. So we have a rattling version in that particular crankbait, and it's extremely unique. It's not something that you're going to see all the time, and it's not going to be the most effective all the time. There's a reason that the silent crankbait works better. When it deflects off of stumps, it's going to cause a reaction strike. However, and this is where it always comes into play, when I'm fishing grass, when I'm fishing dirty water, muddy water, the rattling crankbait works better. Grass in particular, I mean, if you look back at Rayburn, Gunnersville, Chickamauga, fishing a lipless crankbait around grass, it's super loud. Well, it's the same can be said for the Hybrid Hunter. The Hybrid Hunter has a really loud knocking sound in it. It's a loud crankbait. It's made to draw fish up to it. It's made to cause attention and make those fish come up there and eat it because they're curious. And a lot of times that's, well, a fish hears something, they draws their attention, and then when they see it, that's when they actually eat the bait. But when you're in like you're square billing rocks or something like that, and it's clear water, you don't want that. You want that bait to silently come up there, and when it hits that cover that fish is sitting by, it causes that fish to just suck it in and eat it right then. It causes a reaction strike. Well, that is where that comes into play. I absolutely think there is a huge difference in the two. But dirty water or grass are the two situations where I use it. And I can even say dirty water like you're fishing a clear water reservoir and you've got so much wind hitting one bank that it's causing a big mud line. That's another situation where you might use a rattling square bill like the KVD 1.5. I actually designed a bait for Bill Lewis Lures years ago now, and it was the Echo 1.75, and it was a rattling version of a square bill, and it had the same sound system as a rattle trap. It was loud, and it was extremely effective. It's still extremely effective around grass. It's definitely one of those I turn to when I'm grass fishing or something like that. But that to give you an example of the two differences there. Now, mid-depth, you're talking like Series 5, 5XD, that range. I mean, I remember fishing a deep little end. A lot of times, for me, rattles are fine. And if I'm cranking that depth, the water's not overly dirty most of the time. It's typically somewhat cleaner, 1 to 5 foot visibility, something to that nature. But to me, I've never really had to adjust my rattles on that. I will go to a rattle, one that's a silent, like a 5XD silent, if there's a lot of fishing pressure. But for the most part, a rattling one just works just fine. I mean, like I said, I haven't had a lot of problems with that. When I was cranking a deep little end all while I was a kid, I mean, that's the crankbait I turned to. A deep little end was by far the bait that I turned to when I was cranking that mid-depth stuff. And they didn't even offer a non-rattling version in it at the time, so that's just the one I threw. And I think a lot of times, if you look at the crankbaits you throw, like, if you don't throw Strike King, if you throw another brand, you got to just rattle it. See what it sounds like. If it's subtle, I think it's fine. You know, as long as it's not like sound like a rattle trap, I think you're good, because at that mid-depth, I don't want it to be overwhelming. I want it to just be subtle, like a little knock, a little bit of rattle, something that's just more natural. I mean, look at the Spro line of crankbaits, like the Spro MD. John Cruz did a great job making that soft rattle noise in those crankbaits. I love that. I think that is a fantastic idea. Definitely makes a big difference. Now, when you get to deep diving crankbaits, and this is something I've noticed over the last probably 10 years. I mean, it's been a while now. I throw 2 different versions. I do throw, you know, the silent crankbait. This is just a 6XD Chartreuse and Blue. This is just one I turn to a lot. Or Citrus Shad. Citrus Shad is another color I throw a lot. And as you can tell, this is a very loud crankbait. There are certain situations, and I'm going to do my very best to explain these to you to where they make sense. So, when I'm out there cranking ledges, and I'm fishing an offshore spot, offshore school of fish, it's all going to be determined based off of A, boat pressure, B, wind or no wind, or C, what time of year it is. Like, is it early summer, like as soon as they get out there, or have they been out there for a few weeks? And that is a lot to do with it. Conditions can vary, you know, whether it's windy or cloudy or stuff like that, and that can determine some things too. But for the most part, when I go offshore, if I have a windy day and it's a nice day, it's hot, I'll go the rattling version. I think that kind of masks it a little bit, makes it to where they'll eat it a little bit better. But on those semi-calm to super calm days, that silent version is almost impossible to beat. You cannot beat the silent version on those days, because those fish are a lot smarter than we give them credit for sometimes. And out there deep, when there's nothing moving above them, and we have all these little sonar pings from our live scope, our Garmin's, all that stuff, our troll motor noise, just us talking in general, they can hear all that, and it spooks them. And so that silent crankbait coming through there, you don't want something that's so overly loud that it spooks them as well. So that's when I turn to the silent version of that 6XD. The other time I'd turn to the silent version is if I have everybody in the field throwing a deep diving crankbait. I 1,000% will say that I have gone behind people that I know were throwing rattling crankbaits, and I've put that silent one on and caught fish behind them every single time. It just is extremely effective. That is when I turn to it. In my deep diving crankbait box, I actually have it sectioned off rattling, and I have 2 sections here, and then non-rattling, because I throw a non-rattling deep diving crankbait that much. You know, there's other alternatives for deep cranking that stuff. A DT20, a DT16, they have rattles, but they're extremely subtle, and you can fish those on calmer days. I think it just has to do with, if it's too much, it will spook them to a certain level. And it kind of throws me off a little bit. And maybe it's just a mental thing. Maybe if I just put that out of my head and just went cranking, I'd probably catch them better. Because when I grew up, I didn't throw a non-rattling crankbait. I threw a rattling crankbait. I'll tell you exactly what I grew up throwing, which I think is kind of interesting if you look back on it now. I used a Hot Lips Express. It was a 3/4 ounce crankbait. It was probably one of the first deep diving crankbaits that I just had an enormous amount of confidence in. I used, what was the other one? The BD7, the Bomber BD7, the fat-free shad, among others. I mean, I used a Bomber 9A, which is a big wide wobbling, a DD22. I used a lot of these different crankbaits, and every one of them had rattles in them. So when I look at non-rattling versus rattling, the answer is fairly simple for me. I keep it non-rattling if it's pressure, rattling if the conditions call for it. And you kind of have to keep an open mind, because I'm telling you guys, like, I've been out there so many different times where if you make those little minor adjustments on the water, and that can be a minor adjustment of just between the rattling and non-rattling, your bite ratio will go from like maybe 5 bites to 10 bites, or 10 bites to 15 bites, and you'll be shocked how many additional fish you put in the boat. And like I said, I get that question a lot. Man, like, which one should I put on, the rattling or non-rattling? Or the silent or the rattling? I mean, like, I have so many guys get in my boat and ask me that question. And I hope that helps lay it out for you and makes it super simple for you. When it comes to lipless crankbaits, I throw rattling almost 90% of the time. I will change the pitch of them. And, you know, I'll go from the rattling to the 2-tap, like, so the 1-knocker type. And I think that's enough of an adjustment that they hear something different, basically. But, yeah, I mean, I don't throw a silent lipless crankbait very much. I used to a little bit, but I've gotten to the point where if I just switch between those two, I can pretty much catch anything I need to catch. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you the next time you're on the water breaking down which crankbait you're going to fish in your current situation. And I hope you enjoyed this next video.